at 6:04 p.m. Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to mention Mr. Wilson will be joining us shortly. Would you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Mrs. Mawad?
Here.
Mr. Browning?
Here.
Ms. Luce? Absent. Mr. McCourt?
here.
Mr. Wilson? Is absent. Okay.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second?
I do have a few comments about the agenda. The agenda that we sent out to the district yesterday, there's been some minor cosmetic changes. I don't have all of the changes listed here, but there is a copy of the current agenda back in the back if anybody'd like to see that. Also, we do have an addendum to approve the negotiated agreement terms between the Dayton Public Service Union and the Fairborn Board of Education. We're going to be adding that to new business, item M. And it's on the last page of your agenda. You ready to vote?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion carries. And now we'll have the superintendent's report. Mr. North?
Thank you. We're going to start off tonight with a very special guest from the state capitol. We have with us State Auditor David Yost, and he's going to make a presentation for our Treasurer's Department and Nicole. So at this time, Mr. Yost, please step up to the microphone.
Thank you.
Thank you. May it please the board. It's good to be back in Fairborn. I was at Fairborn High School in, I hate to say the year, but I was in the trumpet section of the Golden Eagles marching band of Big Walnut High School, and Fairborn hosted a marching band competition. So it's been a long time, but it's good to be back here. Usually, people are not very happy to see the auditor when he shows up. And that's because we do, by necessity, we have to go back behind the curtain and look at the books, look at legal compliance, look at the financial statements, and report on what we find. So since so much of my job entails me being critical of other people, it's a special joy to be able to also, as part of my job, to recognize excellence when we find it. And we are here today. This will be the fourth year in a row that the school system has earned the Auditor of States Award. Now, the Auditor of States Award is given to those districts that have a clean audit. What that means is not just that the numbers add up, but it means that when we looked at how they do business, we looked at the internal controls, we tested transactions to make sure they were following those controls and policies. We looked to see what was happening with the state laws, whether they were following state laws. We found no problems. So this is a award that's only earned by about 5% of the audits that we do. Another way to say it in edu-speak, I suppose, would be that you're performing at the 95th percentile. But I want to extend my congratulations to the entire district. Nicole, certainly to you and your staff. You've done great work here. But I also want to commend the superintendent and the board because, frankly, without the legislative and executive support, it doesn't matter how good the treasurer is, the audit's not going to come out well. It requires support from the superintendent to require that policies and procedures are followed, the controls are observed, and certainly also with the budgetary law with regards to the legislative authority. So this award it goes first and foremost to the treasurer, but really to the entire district. And I offer you my hearty congratulations. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, can we get this
Everybody
down?
up.
Everybody, come on up.
Can you guys come away from the blue screen?
Yeah,
Why don't you
probably.
stand over there in front of the green?
Yeah.
We'll get a picture of everybody.
Yeah.
We're not going to have enough room. We need to get a couple people in there. Come on. I'm Shrek size.
Fantastic. All right. Me anyway.
Glad to have you back in town.
So you can tell me who everybody is in it? And you can send that back to me tomorrow. I'll
I will.
forward it to Thomas.
Good to see you, sir.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Mark, okay.
Next item we have is Americorps. Or Board want to say anything else before we move on to the next?
No, I just want to appreciate all the work that Nicole does for the district. We've got probably the best treasurer in the state, so.
Thank you. Well, and like he said, it really is a district-wide effort. Without the help of everybody, that we wouldn't be able to achieve a clean audit. I mean, it's all the way through the district.
I know.
And she picks a good team.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilson has joined us.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next item. We have a Americorps presentation. Pam, I'm going to put you on the spot. You know, would you just take a moment, please, and come up front and explain this briefly, what we're receiving and how this is going to help the district, and then we'll do the presentation.
Okay, so currently, and Mr. Nicholson will correct me if I'm incorrect, so why doesn't Sean come up as well? We currently have a guidance staff member at the high school who is funded through Green Giving. And Green Giving is currently trying to figure out, was working with the district to find a way to have that position paid for in another manner, because they help all of the schools in Greene County. And many of you who live in Fairborn know that we have alumni who could more than help in different ways if we just reached out. And so for probably about, how long would you say we've tried?
About a year and a half.
So for about a year and a half, working with Sean, we've tried to reach out to one of our graduates from the class of 1983. His name is Michael Saylor, and he's the founder of MicroStrategy. And he's doing very well, and he's very bright, and he graduated from Fairborn High School. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nicholson, and he can give you the rest of the details about this great opportunity for Fairborn.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Sean Nicholson. I run the education committee for the Greene County Community Foundation. And when I got assigned this position as a volunteer, I had no idea what I was getting into. But I've tried to take it by the horns and wrestle it down. I found out one of the projects that we had going was to try and place an Americorps guide at every high school in Greene County to assist the counselors with college education preparation, working directly with the students to identify those kids who were at risk but needed extra help, and that would be a right hand to the guidance counselors day to day, working with the students to make sure they got their testing done, when it was going to happen, take them on tours of campus visits and things like that. And that worked fine. We had Natasha Wilson here for the last couple of years who did a wonderful job. She sends her regards and is now going on to further graduate work. We had it funded for a number of years through Great Lakes, which does a lot of the loans to college students. And they backed out about 3-4 years ago. We were receiving about a $10,000 a year grant from the state of Ohio. 2 years ago, that dried up. I personally funded it last year because I didn't want to see the program drop. And I said, you know, Sean, this is not a good strategy. You got to come up with a better plan. Well, I was talking to Jack and Pam, and they said, and I said, do you know anybody who we can go to? And they mentioned Michael Saylor. So he's the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And I said, what the heck, I'll give him a call. So I called, and of course I didn't reach him, but I talked to his assistant, Bonnie, very nice girl, about a year and a quarter ago. And I said, Bonnie, he's an alum. I think he'll have an interest in this project once I talk to him. Can you schedule me 5 minutes? She said, okay, well, send me the information. So this goes back and forth, and about every 4 to 6 weeks I call her. And then she always says, now, who is this again? And she says, can you send me the information again? And but I just kept doing it because she said, call me again. So I did. And so finally I said, Bonnie, can you please help? And she said, okay. And finally she says, well, I'm going to schedule you 5 minutes because you've been so persistent. So I said, great. Well, all of a sudden I get a call about 10 o'clock one morning. He said, Michael Saylor wants to talk to you at 1 o'clock today. Okay. So I get on the phone, and Mr. Saylor, you can tell right off the bat, is just brilliant because his questioning. He had no idea what Greene County Community Fund was. He had no idea what the Special Committee on Special Education. He had no idea what an Americorps guide was. Anyway, he asked 100 questions literally in 5 minutes, and it was rapid fire. And luckily I had a lot of good answers, and I'd been prepping for this for a long time. And at the end of about 4 to 5 minutes, he said, okay, I'll fund $7,000 for your Americorps guide in the year 2018. And he said, I'll have Bonnie send you the money. And click, that was it. So anyway, long story short, we got the money for the Americorps guide for next year for the high school. But I truly think there is a lot more that Michael wants to do for the school. In case you're not aware, he actually started his own online university called Saylor University, where students can go and take free college courses in a whole number of different subject areas. And then he went to the bother of getting it transferable to over 1,000 colleges, of which most Ohio schools will now accept his courses as credit. So he has a real interest in education, and I think it's one of those things that we have to continue to massage. So I mentioned to Pam, hey, why don't we have the board at least send a letter of recognition to Mr. Saylor thanking him for $7,000. I am then going to make sure that whoever the Americorps guide that we get in here keeps him up to date every quarter with success stories and personal victories, because I would really like for him not only to fund this as a continuing effort ongoing, but I would really like to see an Americorps guide at the junior high also to get students prepared earlier, and then who knows where we can go from there. Ed Marinan has been trying to get me to work on a program called Discovery Central for the Fairborn area. And if we can get that funded, we're also working closely with the Ohio State Extension Program and the new extension program out at Central State to try and get more funding. So we never know where it'll come from. Anyway, if the board doesn't mind sending him a letter of appreciation, that's all I was asking. And I had a great breakfast with Mr. North a while back, telling him some ideas I had, and then he started telling me everything he's doing, and I said, oh, I would never want that job. But I appreciate all you do and all the board does, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your persistence, Mr. Nicholson. I know how that goes.
And next we have recognition of retirees.
From our certified staff, we have 5 retirees this year. Didn't do my counting before. First, we have Joan Gudorf, who was our media specialist. She was with Fairborn City Schools for 12 years until she retired. Beth Schrader at the primary school has been spent all of her teaching career here with 30 years. We have Major Anthony Ruley, who spent 21 years with us at Fairborn City Schools. Julie Burke was a speech pathologist with us at the primary. She spent 31 years with us. Wendy Schultz as well was with us for 20 years. 10 of her 20 years were with us at Fairborn City Schools. And one of our administrators who is retiring this year, Mr. Ed Gibbons, who was with us for 44 years.
Ed's the only one here.
That's here.
Ed's here.
Ed's here.
He's always here.
It's always here, yes.
Always count on Ed to be
Yep.
here.
You better be back in that corner again.
Congratulations, thank you.
Or will Jean just move over? Please do.
I would just like to say a couple things. Obviously, with 44 years, it's been a difficult decision to decide when to retire. But I can truthfully say I've enjoyed getting up and coming to the school building or the office, wherever it's been the whole time. Going home tired most of those days, but getting back up the next day and coming in and enjoying what I do. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody here in attendance and to the board and administrators. Had a lot of support from the community, so it's been great working with students and other employees, the community. It's just been a great experience. So, but life has a way of telling you when it's time, and it's time to do that. So to get out and kind of turn a new chapter in the book, get out and see what else is out there in the world. So I want to thank you all for this experience. It's been great, and I'll be seeing all of you around still. I'll be around, I'm sure, once in a while. So I want to thank you for everything. Then I'll go ahead with the classified employees. We do not have any in attendance, but I just wanted to mention a little bit about them, their names and years of experience. Ron Adams, bus driver, 14 years. Christiana Berry as a custodian, 29 years in the district. Molly Fife, a preschool aide, 25 years. Cindy House, general helper in cafeteria, 16 years. Cheryl Nickel, who is noon duty aide and impact aide, 19 years. Marianne Paulus, 7 years in the cafeteria. Bruce Porter, 19 years, and is currently the clinic assistant. Bonnie Regal, 29 years in transportation. Tony Regal, 29 years in transportation. John Sundermeyer, 5 years in transportation. Betty Wagner, 3.5 years as special ed assistant. Stephanie Webb, 11 years as digital learning lab. Bernadine Workmeister, 10 years in transportation. So we want to say congratulations to all those people who are retiring as classified employees. A lot of years with the district and a lot of experience going out. So I just want to say thanks to each one. Thank you.
And the last item on the superintendent's report is I just want to give you a very brief description of some of the capital improvement and technology that we will be working on this summer. The board will receive a detailed report by the end of the week. But briefly, again, just want to talk about some of the highlights. We had a company come in and actually do an assessment of the the high school and the junior high, the middle school. And I asked them to look at our facilities and what it would take to address our facilities over the next 5 to 10 years. In other words, how can we keep them Band-Aid together for the next 5 to 10 years in hopes that someday we'll have the opportunity to take advantage of the second phase of the state program that we were able to utilize to build 2 new elementary buildings. Unfortunately, when we got that report back, the numbers were much higher than I anticipated. Ran into several $1 million just to take care of putting things in place at the middle school and high school to get us through the next 5 to 10 years. And we don't have several $1 million, but what we're going to do is we're going to make the best out of what we do have set aside in capital funds. And as the board had approved in its last meeting in the new 5-year forecast, we actually have money now set aside for capital improvements in technology so that we can address some areas that are much needed. So in the areas, let's start with technology. What we're going to be doing basically is replacing any projectors in classrooms, as well as classroom desktops, desktops in computer labs, Chromebooks, and also adding Chromebook parts or Chromebook carts, as well as all the technology behind those projectors with servers and site access points and all those other things. And we're going to do that this summer, and we're going to address all the technology that is either needs to be replaced or is just not there in our intermediate building and our primary building. And some people have asked, why in the world would you put new technology in those 2 buildings when we're going to get new ones? Well, the answer is pretty simple. The primary building is still going to be there for the next 5 years. We're going to be using that as construction is taking place to build a new pre-K 2, and when we finish building that pre-K 2, we're going to be moving 4th and 5th graders over to that building to join 3rd graders. And as we all know, the life of technology is short-lived. So the same thing with the intermediate school. The intermediate school is still going to be there for a couple years. And with the OFCC project, what they do is they pay for the hardwiring and all the support systems behind technology, but they don't pay for the hardware such as desktops and Chromebooks and things like that. So the ones that are in the best shape will be able to move over to the new building, and the ones that are not, we will replace with new, because we budgeted into our bond issue locally funded money to do just that, to address, so we will have up-to-date technology in our schools. This will be followed by next summer, and next summer we'll do the exact same thing in the middle school and in the high school. So by the time, not this coming school year, but the following school year, we will be completely updated in our technology district-wide, preschool through 12th grade. The other part of capital improvement is more of the nuts and bolts of things, just to highlight a couple of areas. For example, here in the high school, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to put some work into the auditorium, into the lighting, into the stage lighting. We can't do a complete overhaul, but we can certainly improve upon what we have there to take care of helping out when they have performances, so we can actually see the kids on the stage when they're out there performing. We're going to be doing some parking lot work, and we're going to be sealing windows that need to be sealed, and like I said, just a lot of the nuts and bolts of day-to-day facilities. At the middle school, we'll be replacing the concrete steps that are busted up and unsafe on the one end of the building. I guess that would be the west side. If the other side's referred to the east side, I'm assuming the other side's referred to the west side. The west side, we're doing some work in the cafeteria. We're actually going to add what we're calling an annex cafeteria, because we have a lot more students coming into the 6th grade than students that are leaving the 8th grade. And they're already packed in there like sardines. And there's no pun intended there. But We need more space, so we're going to take a storage room, a large rectangle storage room that runs parallel to the cafeteria, and turn that into an annex cafeteria so we can split up the students and they can have lunch and not be jammed in there on top of one another. At the intermediate school, we're going to be doing some work on some drainage outside in the playground area so the kids, when they go out to play, are not standing in 2-3 inches of water. We're going to be doing a lot of plumbing work, or some plumbing work, I should say, in the primary building, as well as fixing individual heating units in classrooms. And again, people have asked me, why would you put money into a building that's only going to be there for 2 or 3 years? And the answer is because we can't have children in cold rooms, and we have to have things, the necessities like sinks and toilets and water fountains to work for them. So we have to put enough money into to keep those buildings going for that period of time. So again, the board will receive a complete report on the technology plan as well as capital improvement plan later on this week. But I wanted to take a moment just to give you some of the highlights. The other area I forgot is in their athletic department, as well as maintenance and transportation. Athletic stadium, we started painting it last year. We're going to finish painting it so that we have a fresh coat of paint in the tunnel as well as on the front wall to keep making visual improvements in the athletic stadium. At Baker maintenance department, we're ordering some much needed mowers to make sure that we give our people the right kind of equipment so that they can make the lawns look as we expect them to look, like our lawns. And maintenance department, we're putting some money into fixing some things in the bus garage so the mechanics don't have to, again, deal with things like poor lighting and windows that have been broken, and just some general areas that just been long overdue and need to be addressed. So that's it for my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. North. You're up.
My apologies to everybody. Just, well.
That's okay.
Okay, move on to recognition of visitors. If there is anyone that wishes to address the board, please come up to the microphone near the podium and state your name and address and purpose for addressing the board. No one? Seeing no one, we'll close recognition of visitors. Item 7, approve the minutes of the May 4th regular meeting and the May 25th special meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Browning.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Malad.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion carries. Item 8, Treasurer's Report. Mrs. Marshall.
Okay, this month we're going over the April 30th, 2017 month-end financials. Looking at revenues compared to the same time last year, they were around $400,000 lower. A lot of that has to do with the one-time amount that we received from Medicaid back claiming reimbursement that I've talked about. That's why other operating revenue is down a little over $1 million. So we are anticipating that was a one-time receipt, so we were anticipating a slight decline in our revenues for the year. As of April 30th, we had received 90.97% of what's forecast to be received, and this is based off of the updated forecast that was approved at the special board meeting on May 25th. Expenses were $109,000 higher than the same time the prior year. Capital outlay is much lower than it was at the same time the last year. Mr. Meese did put through several large purchase orders recently for technology. I don't know if that money will actually be paid out this year, so it won't necessarily be a savings to the district if it's not, because it'll just add to next year, if just for timing purposes. So And purchase services are up about $500,000. And this is an anticipated increase. I've talked a lot about the cost of community school deductions coming out of our state foundation, and also an increased cost in special education. As of May 30th, or April 30th, sorry, we had spent 77.9% of what was forecast to be spent. Our general fund balance, just the cash balance, was $24.8 million, with $2.7 million in outstanding encumbrances, leaving an unencumbered fund balance of $22.2 million, which is $4.4 million higher than the same time last year. And this is just a running total of our general fund cash balance for each month, and you can see the roller coaster that it does. I know I say that every month, but we're running right around $5 million higher than we were at the same time last year. Our average monthly expenses for personnel costs, salaries, and benefits was $2.4 million. Our average monthly expenses for everything else was right around $1 million, for a total of $3.4 million. We had 344 certified employees, which includes substitutes, as of April 30th, and we had 273 classified employees, including substitutes. This is a list of the district's investments. Not really much difference from last month. We did get the bond funds invested, the majority of them invested in May, so you'll see that next month. So for the month of April, they were sitting in a money market account, and that's why it's such a large balance. We've already issued the bonds for the new building project, and we haven't started spending that money yet. This is district's cash reconciliation. You can see that we reconciled to zero, which is what we want to see. Well, you can't really see that because it's off the screen. That's a zero there, I promise, which is what we want to see every month. Yeah, just have to take my word for it. There are monthly financial reports in the back if anyone's interested in doing some light reading when you go home. So, and that's all I have. Are there any questions from the board members?
Okay, moving to item 9, the consent agenda, which runs from page 2 to page 8 of your agenda. And on page 7, item 17, we have some retirements. Of Cindy House with 16 years of service at Fairborn City Schools, Mary Paulus with 7 years of service, and Jacqueline Wilcox with 24 years of service for Fairborn City Schools. So we'll have a resolution to tribute for all of those individuals.
And we also have Val Herdman here tonight too, who's coming on as the assistant principal at FPS.
Okay.
To recognize her. Yep.
So yeah, there's no separate vote on that. So welcome, Valerie.
Are we taking
Yep,
Yes.
certainly.
so Vicki can introduce Valerie?
Certainly.
Yeah, please do.
Absolutely.
Please.
So she can do that.
Put you on the spot, Vicki.
No pressure.
Well, you were on the spot earlier.
Introduce our newest member at Fairborn Primary School, Ms. Valerie Herdman, coming to us from Dayton. She will be our assistant principal. She spent the whole day with me and is still here.
That's a good
Run
sign.
away,
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to become a Skyhawk.
Great.
Awesome.
Good. Yeah, and then on page 8, we have the final reading and adoption of our new policies. So, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Browning.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. McCourt. Any discussion? Do we want to read?
Yeah, I can read that. Let me find it.
Policy again.
Yeah, the resolution for the policy.
Here it is.
I got it. Okay, so, and if the board votes to approve this tonight, the policies will become effective today, actually. They're effective the date they're approved, so. The resolution says, resolve that the bylaws and policies printed and codified in the comprehensive document entitled Bylaws and Policies of the Fairborn City School Board of Education are hereby adopted, and that all bylaws and policies heretofore adopted by the Fairborn Board of Education are hereby rescinded. Further, be it resolved that in the event any policy, part of a policy, or section of the bylaws is judged to be inconsistent with law, inoperative by a court of competent jurisdiction, or is invalidated by any policy or contract duly adopted by this board, the remaining bylaws, policies, and parts of policies shall remain in full effect.
Okay.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
This is something that we've been working on over the past several months to update our policies and things.
Yes.
So this
It's been a
is
long process.
So tell your friends they're searchable now.
Right.
yes.
Okay?
Much easier to find.
When will they go live on?
I'd also
Willing
just
board
like to
members
thank,
are always willing to help, but you can search.
also like to thank everybody that was a part of that policy team. That a lot of meetings and a lot of long meetings, and of course Norm from Neola, excuse me, remembering a nurse. But you know, he did a great job with everybody. But you know, this again is part of where we're headed. Getting a lot of people involved, get a lot of buy-in from folks, and letting all of our folks know that you know, they're a part of everything that goes on. And I remember when Mark first started, I always envisioned that board of his, and you know, policy was one thing that was very high on that list, and he drove that task, and you know, it's been 13 years since that thing has been updated. So thank you, Mark, for your leadership on that. But again, thank everybody for contributing.
Yeah, and I will second all of that, all of the hard work and seemingly endless hours of meetings on some very dry subjects, but very necessary steps to take to bring us
Up to date.
up to date. Yes. Oh, anyone else? Call the roll.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. McCourt?
Yes.
Mrs. Malott?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, motion carries. Item 10, the Treasurer's Office. Approve the April 2017 financial report and also approve the temporary appropriations resolution for fiscal year 18. I have a motion.
So moved.
I'll second then.
Thank you, Mrs.
This
Malott,
just proves we planned this ahead.
and thank you, Mr. McCourt.
The April financial report's what I presented tonight, and the temporary appropriation resolution is so that we can make payments beginning July 1st. And this is the last board meeting of the fiscal year, so.
Okay. Call the roll.
Mrs. Malott?
Yes.
Mr. McCourt?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, motion carries. Item 11, gifts and donations. Mr. McCourt, will you do the honors again?
Absolutely. William Nebus is donating supplies for the clinic and classrooms at the intermediate building, valued of $200. And again, I went to school, I think, with Bill's older brother and the Nebus family. Mom and Dad aren't here with us on this earth, but the family just keeps on giving and giving and giving. And vow to you, this is the type of community you're coming into, and folks just keep giving to the schools, and we sure appreciate it.
Have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. McCourt.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Browning.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion carries. Moving on to item 12. Acknowledgement.
Point of order, I'm sorry. I guess I didn't
That's all right. It's a separate item.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, okay.
No vote on it, so.
Hall of Honor, one of our premier events of the year here in the district, and Robert and Jan Clark, a $50 white donor. We appreciate, obviously the donors, and what a great program it is. Like to see it get through a little quicker than what it does, but it is a good night, a great night for the community.
Thank you. Item 13, new business. And one of our best votes of the year, 13A, is approve the 2017 Fairborn High School graduating class. So, and then there's a variety of educational service center and various other items listed on here, and an out-of-state professional leave for the 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., and an out-of-state excursion plan for boys basketball tournament in Florida this winter.
Right.
So, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Browning.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. McCourt. Any discussion on these items?
Yeah, let me just mention a couple things, I think. So item B, we have the special education services that we contract through with Montgomery County ESC. And then item C, that's the K-12 school consultant agreement that I've talked about. Hopefully this will help us rein in some of the costs just to verify students who reside in this district but attend community schools.
And may move. And
they may move and we may not know it, that sort of thing. So this company will help us do that, and hopefully we'll be able to recover some of those costs.
And the cost to have that company is far less than the money we're paying out for kids that don't actually go here.
Yeah,
Right.
so all they need to do is find one student.
Yeah, and it recoups the cost that we're losing.
Plus
So.
Yeah.
The entire.
And then the item D, that's the membership with the National Association of Federally Impacted Schools. We receive impact aid through the federal government. Mr. Walker attends meetings in D.C. twice a year with that organization, and they lobby the federal government so that we can continue to receive impact aid. And we receive about $200,000 a year, so it's significant. Our liability insurance, we're buying school buses, and we're switching to Movecca, so we're approving contracts with them, and that's items G and H. And then I approve our membership to the Ohio High School Athletic Association. I believe that covers everything. Okay. Any questions?
Nope.
No. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. McCourt?
Yes.
Mrs. Malott?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, motion carries. Now we move on to item 13M, which is here, addendum on page 12. Approve the negotiated agreement terms between Dayton Public Service Union Local 101 and Fairborn Schools Board of Education. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. McCourt, and thank you, Mrs. Malad.
Who's seconding? Katie?
Katie.
Okay.
Any discussion on this?
Could I take a second, please?
Yes.
Certainly.
One of our goals as an administrative team, and we certainly with the support of the board, was to resolve the negotiations with all three associations by June 1st. And there's lots of reasons for that. One of those reasons is to put our staff members in a position so they know exactly where their future lies, and that by the time they leave school, they know that not only where they will be as far as pay goes and benefits, but also the stability that brings individuals knowing what they have for the next 3 years, because all three contracts that were agreed upon are 3-year contracts, which in turn brings a great deal of stability for the district. And that's one of the most important things a school district can have, is stability. To me, the opposite of stability is drama. And, I don't like drama.
You have teenagers.
So, yeah, I deal with enough of that. And I just want to say that our association leadership, I just got off the phone with Scott Thomason, the DPSU rep, before I came in here, and I shared with him, and I share the same thing about all three of our leadership teams. When we sat down at the table, this was not a process of us and them. It was a process of we. And we worked together to come up with a negotiated agreement that is consistent, fair for all, and that protects the district so that we could remain fiscally stable throughout its 5-year forecast. And it truly is a win on behalf of everybody, on behalf of the staff, as well as on behalf of our stakeholders, and that circulates down to a win for our students. And I just want to say to the board, I just couldn't be happier with just the cooperation, the way that the negotiating teams all took a responsibility of wanting to do what was best for all. That doesn't always happen. And to be able to settle 3 contracts on June 1st, our last day for staff, and do this before our contract expires on June 30th, because we know there's many school districts that they're still negotiating in July and August and September and October, way after their contracts have expired. It's just a tremendous sign of good things that are going on in Fairborn that I think needs to be talked about and brought up.
Right.
Any other comments from
We're
anyone?
just so appreciative of all the work that all of you have done. Gretchen, Twyla, Mark, Nicole, and Dave Lampy. Like, it's such a good feeling to know that we're heading a ship where people are working together and care about one another. I mean, I think that's been our biggest aim, is to have that sort of relationship and to know that it's happening. We are so appreciative, and congratulations, guys.
And you have in your board packet the actual tentative agreement, so it's got scribbles all over it, but this is what the union voted on tonight. So
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that the board approved the same thing.
I'll echo the sentiments. It seems more and more year after year, we do much better things than maybe what we thought we would, and reach goals. But you don't reach goals without having people, trusting people. 3 board members up here, I know that was something we campaigned on, is restoring the trust. And I think we're heading that way. It doesn't get done in a year or 2, but and I would like to thank Mark and Nicole for their leadership, because I know, because I've heard, it was an entirely different feeling in that room where there was respect and there was people listening to people. And it didn't hurt, from what I understand. I'll call him Mr. McSteamy. We had an attractive attorney in those meetings. And whatever he did, I think I'm going to buy him a Speedo in 3 years. But he did a great job as well for us. And I think one thing we all got to think about, it's not just a victory for one side or it's another. It's a victory for the district and for the kids. So, Twyla, Gretchen, everybody involved, thank you so much.
Yes, and I will echo those thanks to all involved, because of coming aboard on the board 4 years ago. It was a very, very different and contentious situation, and it is so nice to have such a big turnaround. So thank you to everybody.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you also to the team up here and to Gretchen and Twyla. And quite frankly, Pat kind of commented on it. These kind of changes are the reason I ran, and we're not done yet. So.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Mr. McCourt?
Yes.
Mrs. Malad?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, motion carries. All 3 new contracts approved now. So, item 14, board member reports and good of the order. Mr. Browning.
Okay, I'll start. The month of May was a very busy month of May, primarily with the music department in terms of concerts, band, those types of things, and every performance that I went to was better than the one before. So just congratulations to the music club. This morning we had the closing meeting, which was one of the things that Mr. North suggested, and I thought it was a great event in terms of recognizing years of service, recognizing retirements, those kind of things. And lastly, I just want to comment, we lost.
Can't do it.
Can't do it. Go ahead.
Mr. McCord?
Yeah. Can't say how proud I am of Nicole. What she does. Val, welcome. And your family. We welcome you to our family. A great morning meeting, as Jerry said. A lot of good people getting yearly awards, getting retirement notifications and certificates. Something I think we ought to do every year. But it was a great situation. Graduation, to see these kids' face when they walk up and get their diploma is something you just can't imagine. They're so happy. To Ed for his many years of service. You just don't replace people like that. And I don't know if I can say it. I think if I look around this room, I think I can say that I've known Wendy longer than anybody. We worked as lifeguards at a swimming pool. I taught her how to dive. Her dad was my football coach. I made comment earlier that if something like this happens, it affects maybe regionally or county-wide or city-wide, but, you know, Tom and Wendy, these people have done with kids, and these kids scatter all over the country. I know my youngest son, when he was an 8th grader and 9th grader here, went to the Kirsch's house for prayer meeting. And they really do touch kids. And again, I mentioned earlier, because I know the family, Wendy's just like her mother. Just exactly like her mother. And her name is Mrs. Williams. I never knew her first name because it was always Mrs. Williams. But you know, you don't replace people like this. And tonight, please, 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 before you go to bed, just remember the family. And our administration here at high school, going over to Tom's house right away. Thank you, Gene and Amy. But let's don't forget, this is a family. We're all in it together. When we lose somebody, it really hurts. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah. As you can tell, a lot of deep emotions with the news this afternoon. So. If it's okay with everybody, we'll dispense with the rest of the agenda, and I'll request a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. McCord.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Browning.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.